In the movies, it is a monster, an immense maw bursting from the sand to swallow machines. But in the books, the sandworm is the exact center of the entire Dune universe. The economy, the religion, the ecology, the politics, everything rests on this one creature. And its life cycle begins with something tiny that almost no viewer even knows exists. A sandtrout. Remember that name. This little organism is also the greatest flaw in the whole ecosystem, and someone is going to use it as a weapon. Let us take the machine apart, stage by stage. Stage 1. The sandtrout. Picture a supple creature the size of a hand, a kind of living membrane sliding beneath the sand. Taken alone, it looks insignificant. Collectively, it terraforms a planet. Because the sandtrout has one obsession: water. It seeks it, wraps it, traps it deep down, and locks it far away from the surface. Billions of sandtrout over millions of years have literally dried Arrakis out. The desert you see on screen is not a climate accident. It is a construction. And there is the first great reversal of this video. Arrakis is not a dry planet where worms happen to live. It is a planet made dry by the worm cycle itself. The sandtrout do not merely hide water. They wall it off into vast sealed reservoirs deep underground, keeping the surface bone dry on purpose. To a sandtrout, standing water is a catastrophe to be contained, and that single instinct, scaled up over millions of years, is what carved the greatest desert in the universe. Now hold on to this paradox because it will matter enormously at the end. The very creature that hoards all the water is mortally afraid of it. Stage 2. The metamorphosis. When conditions align, masses of sandtrout fuse together, incest, and begin a transformation that takes years. What finally emerges is a young worm. The larval stage of the desert god is a creature small enough that a Fremen child can catch it with bare hands. Few of them will ever reach adult size because worms are fiercely territorial, and the great ones devour the small. A single stretch of desert can sustain only so many giants, which is why the deep desert belongs to the oldest and largest of them. Monsters that have been swimming the sand since before the Empire even existed. And here, take the full measure of the monster's ecological role, because the book states it plainly. The worms and their cycle are the main source of oxygen on Arrakis. On a planet almost without vegetation, it is their colossal metabolism, that internal furnace churning the sand day and night, that keeps the very air breathable. Savor the irony. The men who curse the worms are breathing thanks to them, every single second. All of Arrakis works like that, in a closed loop. Every element of the system indispensable to the ones who fear it. Stage 3. The adult. Shai-Hulud, as the Fremen say. The largest specimens exceed 400 meters. No lungs in the ordinary sense, a metabolism of staggering violence, an internal heat like an industrial furnace, and an entirely underground existence, swimming through sand as if through a sea. It hunts by feel. Any steady vibration on the surface reads, to a worm, as prey, and it will cross kilometers of open dune to reach it, surfacing in a rolling wave of sand the Fremen call wormsign. To watch wormsign racing toward you and still hold your nerve is the first lesson of the desert. Two things attract a worm, and the book is manual precise about it: rhythmic vibrations and spice. That is why the Fremen walk without rhythm, that broken, irregular step the films show without ever really explaining. A regular step on open sand is a dinner bell. And it is also why every spice harvester works under air cover, with a carryall hovering, ready to lift the whole machine off the ground in seconds. Harvesting spice is burgling the owner's house while he sleeps, knowing all the while that he never sleeps for long. And this creature leaves behind an object you saw in the films without ever knowing what you were looking at: the crysknife. The sacred blade of the Fremen is not forged. It is carved from a worm's tooth, taken from a dead giant, milky, translucent, and harder than steel. Every adult of the desert carries one, and the rules around it say everything about this people's bond with its god. The blade is never shown to a stranger, and custom demands that whoever sees one drawn must either be purified or must never leave the desert to speak of it. When a Freeman draws his crysknife, He is holding in his hand a fragment of the old man of the desert. You do not brandish an object like that. You carry it like a relic. And because each blade is cut from one specific worm, a crysknife is almost a name in itself. To the Fremen, the weapon remembers exactly where it came from. Stage 4, and this is the direct link with the previous video. The making of the spice. Deep underground, the secretions of the sandtrout meet the water they have trapped. The reaction is violent. Gas, pressure, an underground explosion. That eruption, which spice hunters watch for on the surface, throws the pre-spice mass upward in what the Fremen call a spice blow, a violent bloom of sand and orange, beautiful from a distance and instantly lethal up close. There, the sun and the dry air of Arrakis transform it. The result is the melange. The substance that runs the entire universe is born from a recurring chemical accident at the bottom of a desert. Nobody designed it. Nobody knows how to copy it. And the whole empire hangs from this phenomenon like a civilization dangling from a single thread. You can now see the full loop. The sandtrout dry the planet. The dryness protects the worms. The worms give rise to more sandtrout, and their shared cycle produces the spice. A perfect machine closed on its own balance. And like every perfect machine, all it takes to break it is a single grain of sand. Except that here, the grain of sand is a drop of water. I am getting there. But first, we need to talk about the worm's second face. Because for a billion human beings, this creature is not an animal at all. It is a god. The Fremen call it Shai-Hulud, the old man of the desert, the grandfather of the desert. Its coming is a religious event, its natural death a bereavement, and the supreme rite of passage of a Freeman consists of confronting it in the maddest way imaginable, climbing on top of it. The method is insane in its simplicity. A Freeman plants a thumper, a small device that beats a steady rhythm against the sand to call a worm from kilometers away. As the giant rushes in, the rider sprints alongside it, drives a maker hook between two of its great ring segments, and pries one open. Desperate to keep the abrasive sand out of that soft, exposed tissue, the worm rolls its wound up to the surface and refuses to dive. Those hooks let a rider steer the creature across hundreds of kilometers. A Freeman teenager who completes his first ride becomes a man. Think about that reversal. The absolute predator, the terror of the whole empire, is for this people a mount, an ancestor, and a sacrament. That is the entire difference between those who merely exploit Arrakis and those who truly inhabit it. And that bond runs all the way down to the desert people's most secret rite. When a Sietch needs the water of life for its ceremonies, the water masters capture a young worm and drown it, deliberately, in the very water its species has always fled. From that chemical agony comes the sacred poison, which only a reverend mother can transmute and make drinkable for the tribe's communion. In other words, the Freeman religion literally drinks the death of its own god, transmuted by its holy women. Herbert did not scatter these details for decoration. Every Freeman rite is ecology turned into liturgy, survival knowledge encoded as the sacred, and it is that total coherence that makes this people feel more real than most actual civilizations. And this religious relationship is anything but naive. The Freemen understand their planet's ecology better than every imperial planetologist combined. They know what the Empire ignores or refuses to see. And they know, in particular, the thing I promised you at the very start, the flaw. Water kills the worms, not in vast quantities, on contact. A worm that meets a body of open water dies in chemical agony, and it is from that agony, ritually inflicted on drowned young worms, that the Freemen draw their water of life. The creature that rules the desert is mortally allergic to the most ordinary thing in the universe. Now assemble everything you have learned. The spice comes only from the worms. The worms survive only in absolute desert. And the sandtrout, that tiny larval stage, is a living water management tool. Whoever truly understands this triangle holds a weapon without equal, the power to switch the entire cycle off. Introduce water in the right place, protect or release the sandtrout, and all spice production stops forever. In the later books, this very detail of biology becomes exactly that, an instrument of blackmail on the scale of civilization. One man, in the book still to come, will make that threat real, and it will reshape the entire age. But that is a story for another day. To threaten the worms is to hold hostage every navigator, every emperor, every planet on the network. The monster of the desert is, at the very same time, the single weak point of the entire universe. One question remains, and it is immense. Who are these people capable of riding a god? The people the Empire mistakes for savages, who are secretly running the most ambitious scientific project in the known universe. That is where this story goes next.